a huge hole in the Washington Post reporting of a double tap strike on a suspected narco boat in the Caribbean. Navy Admiral Frank Mitch Bradley telling lawmakers that there was no kill them all order from Secretary of War Pete Hegseth in the September 2nd attack that killed 2 suspected drug boat traffickers. And ABC News now reporting those survivors were actually trying to salvage the drugs. And Senator Tom Cotton, who saw the video with his own eyes, backs up that account.
I saw 2 survivors trying to flip a boat loaded with drugs down the United States, back over, so they could stay in the fight. And potentially, given all the context we heard, of other narco-terrorist boats in the area coming to their aid to recover their cargo and recover those narco-terrorists.
And Democratic Congressman Jim Himes, who was in the room for Admiral Bradley's testimony, even he admits that the second strike was indeed on drug traffickers.
What I saw in that room was one of the most troubling things I've seen in my time in public service. The United States military attacking shipwrecked sailors. Bad guys, but attacking shipwrecked sailors. Now, yes, they were carrying drugs. They were not in the position to continue their mission. The last thing I'm going to say is that the Admiral confirmed that there had not been a kill them all order and that there was not an order to grant no quarter.
So does it
Greg, knowing all of this now, it gives me an understanding of why when Bradley was walking into the Capitol this morning, he looked very confident.
This guy, douchebag, yeah, shipwrecked sailors. They're narco-terrorists, you bonehead. That guy had to roll back everything he said, and while he was rolling it back, he still kept digging a grave. What an idiot. I love watching people who were suddenly experts at war crimes because they have, like, Grok or AI. You gotta remember, what were these people experts at before, right? Climate. They were experts at that, lecturing us on climate. Gender, race, presidential competence. They built by corrupting the media industry, they built this house where they have no credibility for the future. Especially this story. It's like it was so on the nose. Like 6 Democrats release a video suggesting that there could be possibly an illegal military action coming soon, and then just like magic, you get this story, just appears. This is too engineered to be real. It's like a boss coming up to you and saying, you know, I wouldn't buy a new car if I were you, because he knows you're not getting a raise. This is so, it's almost unbelievable how stupid they think we are, and yet they keep pulling these hoaxes over and over again.
It does show, Kennedy, that when you have a big blockbuster story with one anonymous source, like maybe take a beat before you comment on it.
Well, the problem is, and this is what often happens, is they can easily be proven wrong. And, you know, what they didn't realize was everyone who had seen the footage corroborated what the Admiral is testifying before Congress. That, you know, yes, there were survivors, and they were obviously, you know, their lives depend on whether or not they get the drugs from point A to point B. But I think we're getting distracted by this. I think this is one of these stories where we're getting so distracted in the hair splitting that we're losing sight of the bigger picture. And the bigger picture should be, is this really the best way to combat narco-terrorism? And, you know, I will continue to argue that the best way to do that is to reduce demand in this country. And we don't talk about that enough. We don't talk about it with our kids. We don't admit that people have a massive appetite for drugs in this country. And even if we're blowing the living crap out of boats in the Caribbean, they will find another way. It is incredibly lucrative. These are multi-billion-dollar agencies. These are not just cartel families that we saw in Narcos Mexico, which is one of my favorite series on Netflix ever. These are massive enterprises that are incredibly creative and adept at finding new ways to deliver to American noses exactly what they want. And that's what we have to deal with in this country, because going, drugs are bad, okay? It has not been enough of a deterrent.
I have to disagree. That is what makes this so different. It's not just saying drugs are bad. It's like, no, we realize the war on drugs was a failure. This is an actual literal, we're taking it to them, and especially since we're not talking about drugs anymore. We're talking about really one little fentanyl, like a kid going and getting coke or Xanax and dying. That is not what that's not what we're talking about. That's not recreational partying drugs. This is basically homicide. You're killing hundreds of, guy goes out, buys a Xanax off a friend and he dies. That's not recreational drugs, that's murder. So I think it's a different thing than the way you portray it, and how dare you.
But I agree with you there, and that's what's so scary, is kids have an appetite for doing things that are dangerous, cross the line, make their parents really upset. And it's like, I have a child in college, and it scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Because this stuff is so incredibly pervasive, and it doesn't matter the lectures or how you raise them, it is a moment of curiosity. You're absolutely right, that takes someone's life. And I cannot tell you how many people I know who've either lost a family member to a fentanyl overdose. You know, a good friend of mine lost her stepson because he did cocaine for the first time that was laced with fentanyl, and those are the people who are dying.
Yes.
But it's still an appetite and a curiosity and a form of rebellion that we have not gotten our heads around.
If I could, just before we go to Harold and Jesse, I'm just going to play this because in 1989, somebody that we used to see on TV periodically when he was at the White House, he said this in 1989, Joe Biden.
Let's go after the drug lords where they live. With an international strike force, there must be no safe haven for these narco-terrorists, and they must know it.
Isn't that the same policy?
Sort of. I agree with Kennedy. I hate to disagree with my pal at the table. I agree with you. You said it well. The appetite and curiosity, it has to be both. I don't have an issue at the same time of going after these narco-terrorists in these boats, but it would seem to me, DP, what might be better to reconcile, I think, even what then Senator Biden was saying, maybe intercept these guys, find out who the big guys are behind them. They're not the ones. These guys in these little boats, I want to stop them, but they're not the guys that are behind these massive criminal enterprises that are flooding our country with these drugs. And we are kidding ourselves if we don't address what Kennedy so eloquently laid out. My kids are only 11 and 10. But you just don't know what they're going to touch or what's going to happen. You've got to drill in them that appetite and that curiosity. We got to figure out how we stop that.
You can do both.
You can do both. I know, but I don't think this is necessarily the best way to do it.
So you can't do both.
No. The best way. No. When I say I don't think blowing up these boats, sure, some of them, but figure out who's behind all of this.
I think you can do that, and you can do what you're talking about. You can do three things.
You can do 4 or 5. I agree with you. I agree with you. Now, I will say this. I remember after Operation Midnight Hammer, there was a lot of media frenzy and speculation from the left and the right, and about what happened, how successful the mission was. And Secretary Hegseth and Lieutenant General Kane, who I think at the time I called him Raising Kane, might have been the Joint Chiefs already. They stood before the press corps and took a variety of questions. As I listened to Secretary Hegseth and President Trump and Ms. Leavitt and Admiral Bradley, they don't all seem to be on the same page over the last few days. DP would have a much better and smarter perspective on this than I do. But as I just listened to them, I think it would behoove the Secretary and this Admiral Bradley to stand before and answer some of these questions, the questions they can answer, so we can get some of the nonsense behind
You don't think
this.
they did that today?
They didn't do it publicly. They did it
Well, I
before
know,
the
but
Senate.
maybe they. I mean, but
But all I'm saying is Lieutenant General Kane and Secretary, well, they Hegseth and Kane went before the country and answered questions about Operation Midnight Hammer. Why can't they go before the country and the press and answer some of these questions?
Over. I mean,
It's a one-shot deal. This is an ongoing operation.
Go ahead.
The Iranian thing's an ongoing operation.
Not anymore.
I differ with you guys.
We blew it to smithereens. I agree with you. I disagree with you.
Why do you disagree with
Well,
me?
because you can deal with it on the demand side. You got to stop doing the cocaine, but you also have to take it to the supply side. But Harold, we've been interdicting these ships for 4 decades, and it hasn't worked.
I know.
We've been having Coast Guard cutters go off into the Caribbean and Pacific and capture these boats. And do these guys ever sing to who's the boss? No, they don't do anything, and then we send them back, we lock them up, and they escape.
Don't you remember Miami Vice?
We have to do something different. The argument the Democrats are making is we have to do the same thing we've been doing since 1980, which is treat this as a police action. And it hasn't worked. So now we're taking the fight to the enemy, and we can already tell it's working because Maduro's scared. He might leave to the Middle East. Mexico's shaking in their boots. They know that they could be next. And the Colombian guy's like on his last leg. So I like the policy, and it's not a controversial policy. You know Mark Thiessen, Dana? He did an interview today with the acting director of the Defense Intelligence Agency under Barack Hussein Obama. For 5 years, this guy was calling all the shots. This is what he said. At the heart of it, We use double taps all the time. I mean, some of them probably were injured, yet you hit him again. And it was something that had bipartisan support on Capitol Hill. How about this? Dan Crenshaw. I can't recall any time in my history of doing counterterrorism ops where we strike a group, whether it's a building or a boat or a vehicle, and then we're like, oh, there's survivors? We have to go. We can't kill them. Of course we killed them. This is not even a debatable issue. If these guys are radioing the cartel and are climbing back, not injured, into the boat and about to pick up the dope and send it back to another boat, then the boat's still operational and the coke is still there, and it's a deadly poison to the United States.
Let me be clear. I don't disagree. I don't mind them blowing it up. I think they were right. My only point is Kennedy raises the point we're trying to figure out is how do we combat and reduce drug use and deaths in our country, and we have to do all of this. So,
Yes, we have to stop doing
you need to
so
correct
much
yourself because I
blow.
said exactly that.
Charlie Sheen already quit, so we're on our way.
Harold, it only took us 27 minutes to get your blood pressure up.
No, my blood pressure's fine.
Okay, he's fine. He's fine, everybody.